Hello and welcome to Natural Sciences. Today's topic is balance in the ecosystem. So we are going to look at some practical activities for this topic. Right, our first question says, read the passage on the grassland ecosystem and fill in the missing words in the statement below. So this is the text or the passage that we have to read. In a grass ecosystem, the grass grows when it rains. This means there is more food for grazers. Also, the size of their population will increase. The more grazers feed on grass, the available food starts to decrease. If the grass can grow again while being eaten, the ecosystem sustains the grass-eating population. However, if the grass is eaten more quickly than it can grow again, this would mean there is an unstable or unsustainable use of the grass, and the grass will not be able to recover. During the dry season, the grass will also struggle to grow. There will be no food for grazers, and they will either die or migrate. Luckily, ecosystems recover when it rains again. So that is our text. It's telling us about the grassland ecosystem and how the organisms survive. Right. So now we are going to look at our questions because we need to fill in the empty spaces in these statements. So our first statement says, when there are more grazers in an area, more will move to the environment to feed on them. So what is it that normally feeds on grazers? These are our predators. Predators, that's a D. Right. I think it's not clear. Let's write it again here. Predators. So these are the organisms that normally feed on them, the lions, the cheetahs, and the eagles. Right, our second one says, the grazers are being eaten. When the grazers are being eaten, their space in the population will remain the same. So what is it that remains the same when grazers are being eaten? This is the number of organisms. So when grazers are being eaten, the number of organisms in the population will remain the same. Our third one is the grass will have a chance to again. So what chance will the grass have? It will have the chance to grow. Very good. To grow again. Right. Moving on to number 4. Then we can say the ecosystem is now balanced, because we have an equal number of grazers, we have equal number of browsers, we have equal numbers of predators and the organisms and what they feed on. Number 5, when there is less grass, the number of grazers will and there will not be enough food for the So what we need to put in there, when there's less grass, the number of grazers will decrease. And there will not be enough food for the predators. Right. So the balance of the ecosystem will be disturbed or disrupted. So that is the first activity that we had to do about the balance in ecosystems. So we are quickly going to move on to the next one. So here it says, study the diagram that shows the threats to riverine rabbits and answer the questions that follow. So our first question here is, name 3 factors that can prevent the population growth of riverine rabbits. So looking at this diagram, which shows the threats. So we need to come up with only 3 threats to these species. So the first one that we can identify here is overgrazing and soil erosion. So overgrazing and soil erosion. Then we have fires, because when there are fires, then our riverine rabbit will not have habitat or home. Then the last one that we can have there is natural disasters. Right, so we have answered the first question of this activity, and now we are going to move on to our second question of the same activity. So now it says, explain how farming and field fires are a threat to the riverine rabbits. So how these two are a threat. So the first thing that we need to remember is that both farming and field fires do what? They destroy habitat. So the first thing that they do is they are going to destroy the habitat for the riverine rabbits. And then after that has been done, riverine rabbits will not have food, because if their habitat is destroyed, that means the plants that they feed on are also destroyed, which then means that they have no food to feed, and that could lead to their extinction or migration. Right, so that is what will happen when we have farming and field fires in this ecosystem. Now we are going to move on to the third one. The third one says, explain natural factors. What are natural factors? So natural factors are changes in the environment that organisms have no control over. So these are natural factors. These are the changes that take place in an environment, and organisms have no control over them at all. Now that is the first part of our activity. Now we are going to move on to the second one. So the second one says, study the energy pyramid and answer the questions that follow. So here you need to explain how removing primary consumers from the energy pyramid will affect the balance in the ecosystem. Right, now let us look at our energy pyramid here. This is the energy pyramid, and we have producers and primary consumers. So the question says, if we were to remove these primary consumers, then how will this affect the balance in this pyramid or in the ecosystem? So what will happen is that the producers will start to increase. So our producers will increase. Why? Because there are no organisms that are feeding on the producers, so they'll increase in number. And then what will also happen is that our secondary consumers will now or will not have food, or will not have primary consumers to feed on. So the secondary consumers will not have anything to feed on, or animals or organisms to feed on, which then can lead to them dying because they don't have food to eat. And that will mean our tertiary consumers also will suffer, because now they will also not have enough food to eat. So that is how the balance then will be disturbed if we were to remove the primary consumers from this food pyramid. Now, moving on to the second question, it says here, explain how floods can disrupt. So how floods can disrupt the flow of energy in this pyramid. So what we need to understand about floods is that when it floods, our producers are negatively affected. How so? Because they will be submerged in water and die. So now if we have no producers, that means our herbivores or our primary consumers will also suffer because they will not have food to eat. And if our herbivores or primary consumers are not there, then automatically the secondary consumers are going to suffer together with the tertiary consumers. So this thing, it's the producers affect the primary, the secondary, up until the tertiary. So our third question says, name 2 natural factors that could cause an imbalance in the ecosystem. So the 2 natural factors that we spoke about were the droughts and the floods. So these are the 2 natural factors that could cause an imbalance to the ecosystem. So we are going to leave it here for now, and I'll see you after the break.